74 things the Rangers can do to start building a dynasty in 2024. Now, this comes courtesy of Evan Grant, and I will warn you with the Dallas Morning News, we might skip some of these things because some of them are like Adolis Garcia. You know, like some of them are simplistic and like things that you probably could figure out, but we'll run through as many as we can and stop wherever you guys would like. It was a really interesting article, Dallas Morning News or dallasnews.com if you want to check it out. This is the easiest one. Become a league average bullpen. Now, I feel like this is where we had our conversation a few years ago about the Cowboys defense. And we were like, if they can get to average, holy crap. How good do you think this Rangers team can be if they have a league average bullpen? And do you think it can happen?
World Series champs.
That makes sense.
I would say it gets them back to 90 wins, which gets them in the playoffs. It's amazing when you do look at what they had to go through last year. Early on in the season, they couldn't get it done. Jose Leclerc couldn't get it done.
Right. Thank God for Will Smith.
And that's when Will Smith kind of took over, I would say, in, I don't know, mid to late April.
Yeah.
And then he floundered. And then you had Aroldis Chapman, who kind of did okay, but that didn't last very long. And then you had Leclerc, who kind of came back into the mix late in the year and was able to pick it up and then did great in the playoffs. So I'll say, yeah, if you have that bullpen again, it's tough for me to believe that you can get back to 90 wins.
According to the Star-Telegram, the Rangers had 63 save opportunities last year and saved 30 games. So math says that's 33.
47.6%.
That's a lot.
Well, just to put that in context, Baseball Reference says for any team with 50 save chances in a season, it's the second worst ever in the history of baseball ever.
So, yeah. So somehow they overcame it.
But think about, you're right.
But you're right. But I think to Mike's point, that might be not just a 90-win team. We might be talking 100 and something.
Okay.
Wow.
Well,
that's
hold on.
Going to be tough.
I want to balance that out. Yeah. So let's talk about that. If you just got back to league average, you would have picked up 9 more saves, aka 9 more wins last year. So if nothing else, I would like to see it more than offset. Like, let's say Jordan Montgomery's not coming back. I feel like we've been up and down on that several times. Let's just say he doesn't come back. Well, let's say you offset, hey, we're going to lose 5 extra games because of that. But your bullpen getting to average maybe can still push you to an overall better team, at least in the regular season. I realize what a stud Jordan Montgomery was in the postseason, so I can't fix that right now. But just getting back to average. And part of the thing that goes with that is restoring the confidence in Jonathan Hernandez. We talk about this with arm talent all the time.
Yeah.
In theory, Jonathan Hernandez has the best stuff in the bullpen. Yes?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Okay, but that has not and does not always translate to
like
result.
John Gray.
I could see
Great
that.
stuff, and you're just like, what? But where's it going?
His demeanor on the mound when he gave up a leadoff hit,
defeated.
Like it was over. Like mentally, he had just given up on himself, and it was tough. And so that will be the key this year is his belief and faith in his stuff. And obviously, I think he's also finding out this. His stuff is great. You can't just throw it down the middle, especially when you're behind in the count. Maybe, hey, first pitch, challenge him with a 2-seamer. Right down the middle. Get ahead. But you got to work the edges now. And you got to be able to not go, okay, I'm going to work the edges and now get to 2-1 and get back to a little bit. That's not a huge favorable count for a hitter, but still back into a situation where now the hitter can eliminate some things from you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another person I'm going to throw on this list, and I realize we're kind of staying in the same sort of spot right now, is Brock Burke. Brock Burke, from 2022, I think we felt pretty good about him. Down the stretch last year, not so much.
No, well, this was the interesting thing last year. I remember asking a question of, hey, how much faith does Bruce Bochy have in Brock Burke? Because it seemed like at times when guys were tired, maybe Aroldis Chapman is throwing 2 out of 3 days. Like, don't throw him the 3rd out of.
Yes.
And it was like he was going to go with that rather than Brock Burke. And so I was kind of asking, hey, is Brock Burke hurt? And I just feel like this year it's going to be really important for him to get off to a good start so that there's confidence to bring him in situations. And then obviously he's going to have to he's the only lefty that I think the Rangers have that will pitch in the 7th or 8th inning. And I don't know even if he will. But right now he is the option, unless I'm drawing a blank, the Double-A kid. That would be a lot of pressure to put on a kid who pitched in Double-A last year.
Jump.
Antoine Kelly?
I believe so. And just like, you made the team and you're pitching the 7th and 8th inning.
I'm going to skip a few of these. I feel like we've talked a lot about Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford. Leody Taveras is, well, he's old potentially in this outfield at 25, which is a weird thing, but also just shows you the potential depth that we have going on. The next step, be more of a threat against left-handers. Now, we've talked about that to a certain degree in a smaller sample size with Evan Carter. Do you believe that Leody Taveras can make progress against lefties?
As a right, because he's a switch hitter, so I'm trying to pull up as fast as I can his split.
But he seems to struggle, at least compared to right-handers on either side. Like, I realize the advantageous way you would attack that, but he had a 638 OPS against lefties last year, which is right in line with his career.
275 batting average versus 241, 768 OPS when, he's batting left-handed versus 638 when he's batting right-handed. Yeah, so he needs to get better at that. They need to be closer numbers for sure.
Maybe he should just hit left-handed all the time instead. Maybe he's a poor right-handed hitter. I also don't understand. Like, I don't know how often switch hitters are like really good from both sides, as opposed to being really good from just one side.
I think it's fun talking to Mark McLemore, who is able to do it. And you're gonna you have to hit a time and a half more than all your teammates.
Yes,
because when Marcus Semien, for example, is taking his swings, he's taking them all from the right side. You're gonna take a lot of your swings from the left side. The majority, because you're going to face right-handed pitching more than you're facing left-handed pitching. But you still, let's say I take as many swings in the left-hander's batter's box as Marcus Semien does in the right-hander's batter's box. Now I got to go get 30 to 50% more work in, because now I got to work on my right-handed swing, because if they bring in a left-handed reliever, a lefty is starting. So you do have to have a stronger work ethic in a way, more than most guys, because you have to work harder, because you have to get in more swings. The same amount of swings that Marcus Semien gets in, if you're getting in the same amount of swings, you're actually getting in less swings than he's getting in.
That's interesting, too, for a guy like Jonah, who's a switch-hitting catcher. He already works harder than everybody, and now he's going to work even harder.
We've talked about Cory Seager's MVP outlook and the sports hernia and everything like that. Seeing more emotion from Cory Seager. I'm not saying he has to be a Dolus on a day-to-day basis, but every time he shows emotion, it feels like this team is like, we will never lose again.
No.
I'm with Corey. I disagree. I don't want him to show more emotion.
We kind of discussed this the other day when Murph and Kevin, you were out. So Murph was saying that when you get to the playoffs, you kind of have to temper your energy a little bit. So I think throughout the regular season, I'm perfectly fine with his energy level being where it is, so that he's not expelling anymore when he gets to the playoffs, because of who he is in the playoffs is the reason that he's as good as he is too. He's so even keel minded.
I want him to be himself. I think if you start stepping outside of yourself, like, I'm going to be more emotional, and you're not an emotional guy. I think guys that are really emotional, hey, yes, there's a way to show it. Like, we want to show more positive emotion than negative emotion, because I felt like that was I'll take one of the greatest players of all time, LeBron James. Unfortunately, sometimes his emotional status of wanting to celebrate everything, also when things aren't going well, it was kind of like he got so down.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, you can't get so down, but he's like, I'm an emotional player. And so I feel like Cory Seagers are really good to have on your team. You don't want 9 of them. You want Garcias, but you also have to have Seagers to get a little bit more of a even keel on your team. So in a way, I think his emotional status of almost showing no emotion can help out, because when Wyatt Langford does come up, who are his examples going to be? Well, one of them will be Garcia, but another one will be Seager. And so he's going to have to find, like, how do I get the most out of myself? Is it being closer to Garcia? I don't really know Wyatt Langford at all. We'll get to meet him tomorrow at Worth Collectibles in Waxahachie. But I don't know, like, where he's going to be on that emotional line. But I'm okay with Seager. He's been doing this for 7-8 years now in the major leagues.
And one of the things, I discussed yesterday, Kevin, was Adolis is, I told you, now I'm more than ever, I need him back. I need to make sure he's there because I think he allows all the rest of the players to fly under the radar emotionally.
Can I go back to Leody real quick?
Yeah.
I didn't know this. How about, I know we're talking about him hitting against left-handers. First half, 295, 812 OPS. Second half, 233, 642 OPS. So he dropped off.
Tremendous.
Yeah, so it'll be, I don't expect him to be 295. To be honest, I don't expect him to be 295 with an 812 OPS. But I also don't expect him to be 233 with a 642. So just be like more consistent throughout the season.
Now, several of these are intertwined. Marcus Semien takes a day off, and the Rangers spend some time in spring training looking at what a lineup looks like with Evan Carter in the leadoff.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that at the end of the year, we interviewed Bruce Bochy, and they said they were going to take a look at that because he was struggling. Remember, he struggled in the playoffs a lot and is like, have we wore him out because he wants to play all 162? Would it be better if he plays 152 and you give him 10 days? He's completely healthy, but you give him 10 days off, like on Sunday day games.
835 plate appearances last season. Now, let's talk about people who are probably doing too much. Jonah Heim catches less. From September 10th through winning the World Series, he started 37 of 38 games. That's awesome. I know MLB.com didn't think so. I think that's awesome. Now, to go along with this, I feel like maybe we all don't think this is going to happen. Sam Huff becomes a legitimate option as a catcher and a hitter.
Would love for it to happen. Jonah did have an extended period of time off with his injury that I think helped him with that last stretch, Kevin, at the end of the season, even though by the time the World Series was over, he was just melting in his chair every day. But I think the time off that he had helped, but your backup catcher situation doesn't exist right now. So you need Huff to make that happen unless you're going to go buy one.
It's just you have to feel comfortable with Kisner playing 40, 50 games as your starting catcher.
Yeah. That's
28 years old. Last year, 241 batting average with a 712 OPS. But you're not going to find.
That's not horrid.
Backup catchers.
Yeah.
They're just not usually offensive guys.
Let's go back to pitching, specifically starting pitching. This is really interesting. At least one out of the group of Jack Leiter, Owen White, or Zach Kent proves capable of making more than half a dozen starts by the end of the season.
That has to happen. If there's supposedly a dynasty here or a run of teams that make the playoffs, let's say discount last year, they obviously did everything you could ever ask. In the next 5 years, would you guys be happy if they made the playoffs 3 out of the 5 years? Not giving you playoff results, just that 3 out of the next 5 years they made the playoffs.
I love playoff baseball.
I don't think they can do that unless these guys develop. And I'm not saying just these guys, but you got to start developing guys that can help you out because you just don't have a budget of, hey, every starting pitcher gets $20 to $40 million.
Well, and on the part of the pitchers that do, the next part, probably the last part we'll hit for now from Evan Grant. Really interesting article if you want to go check it out. At least 2 from the combination of Scherzer, DeGrom, or Malley have to do the same.
Come back.
And get at least half a dozen starts before the season's out.
Probably so. Yeah.
Is that doable?
That's the 2 things that you just mentioned are the scariest parts of the 2024 and beyond Texas Rangers. One, the veteran guys who are hurt come back healthy and productive. And then the other one is, can you develop your pitching prospects into real major league pitchers for your team that are making somewhere between $700,000 and $2 million a year the next 3 years?
Yeah, and then just listening to AJ Przinsky this morning, like the national feel is, hey, all these guys are coming back at sometime after the All-Star break. Y'all are going to be great. Cavalry's coming home. And I think us as Rangers fans or DFW sports fans just can't believe that any of those guys are going to be like truly helpful. But if DeGrom is truly healthy and can do that and make a run into the playoffs, like that's the dream, right? To make it to that point.
I'll tell you
if you are healthy and you have DeGrom, Scherzer, and Evaldi as your 3 guys going into the playoffs healthy.
Good
Look
luck.
out.
All right, Baltimore, we get how great you are.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can beat us with these guys.
I do kind of want to dive back into that portion as well as something else from this article. Maybe we'll do that next week before we head off to the Super Bowl.